All right, joining us right now on another wrestling podcast is a former WWE superstar, a multi-time champion, and he did all of this despite being brought up on the mean streets of Greenwich, Connecticut. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Pete Gas. Pete, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Wow, you really you made me sound kind of special there. That was great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, I have to say this. I was a huge fan of yours whenever you were in the WWE, but one of the biggest things I wanted to talk to you about is recently on Raw, someone held up a Mean Street Posse sign during the Roman Reigns entrance that he makes to the crowd. How did that make you feel after it being, I mean, it has to be around, 15 years that since the Mean Street Posse ran wild in the WWE. What does that do to you as a person, and why do you think that people, after all these years, are still talking about the Mean Street Posse?
First of all, I want to say, if I ever find that guy, I have to buy him a beer. I mean, that was great. The other thing was, I'm watching the show, and I did see the sign, and the best part about it was Vince was staring at Roman Reigns, and there's no way he could have missed that sign. And hopefully the next time I see him, I remember to, next time I see Vince, hopefully I'll remember to ask him about that and see what he has to say. But to answer your question, it's pretty special. To be gone this long, and to still be in the minds of some of the fans and in the universe and stuff. I mean, there's always going to be the ones that hated us, and that was good because that means we did our jobs. But then there's the other ones that, aren't like that guy, still interested in the Mean Street Posse. So it's pretty special for me. It means that we did our jobs, and we got over with the crowd. They always, I remember since we first started and there were signs, they said, that's a sign whether or not you're over with the crowd. And for 15 years later, for these signs to be popping up once in a while, it's pretty damn special.
That's awesome. Now, everybody's pretty familiar with you after 1999, but I wanted to take some time to talk about Pete Gas, the pre-1999. So, where did you grow up? Did you actually grow up in Connecticut?
I grew up on those mean streets of Greenwich. Yes,
that's great. So, I guess, were you a fan of professional wrestling as most kids are growing up?
I absolutely was. I was a huge Hulkamaniac. When I was a fan of Hulk Hogan before he became the Hulkster. When he was working for Vince's dad, there was a Channel 9 show. You're in the area, so I don't know how old you are, but there used to be on Channel 9 WOR-TV. They used to have Saturday night wrestling, and as a 9-year-old kid, I would force myself to try to stay awake to see this big blonde guy named Hulk Hogan or Terry Hogan, whatever. I forgot what name he went. I think it was Hulk Hogan by then. And I would force myself to stay awake to try to watch his matches and as much as I could. And it just snowballed from there. I was always a fan growing up.
So what were some of the things that you did growing up? Were you, I mean, obviously you're a fan of wrestling, but was that like your first love, or were you into other sports? How did that come about?
Well, I do. I love all sports, to be honest with you. I like the Rangers as far as hockey goes. I'm not a skater. I can't skate. That's a little tidbit. But as far, I'm mostly a football guy, baseball and basketball. So, growing up, I was always a big-time football fan. I played football, from junior high school right through college. I went to the University of Connecticut, got a 4-year full scholarship there to play football. And I've always had a love of sports. In my house, my father and 2 older brothers, I mean, we didn't have we were middle class in Greenwich, for what that's worth. And we had a small living room, and we all packed in that one living room, and there was only one thing on that television, and that was sports. So you were force-fed sports as much as possible.
All right. Now, was that your first idea of something that you wanted to pursue as an adult, is that you wanted to be in sports, or did you have any other ideas of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
To be honest with you, I always dreamt of always dreamt of playing professionally, and obviously, I was an offensive lineman, and I'm not exactly that, the size of an NFL offensive lineman. I'm tall enough. I just in college I was a 300 pounder, so I was right around that. Back then, I would have been a center, but I sustained a really bad thumb injury, and it put me on the shelf for a few weeks, and that kind of lost interest of a few NFL teams that came in to see me the year before and that were scouting me. So I didn't really pursue it after that. As far as wrestling, I'd always dreamt of being a wrestler, and it's amazing that it eventually came true.
Now, it's been well documented that you are indeed a friend of Shane McMahon. How did that friendship actually start? Obviously, you're from Greenwich, so did you guys go to the same school? How did that happen?
Well, Greenwich is a big town, and there's actually 3 junior high schools in Greenwich, and I went to one, and Rodney and Shane actually went to another one, and we were, I guess if you want to call us rivals in junior high school, we were rivals then. And then once 10th grade hit, your sophomore year at Greenwich High School, you end up going to the high school. The school's so big that there's so many kids that we weren't able to have freshmen at the high school back then. So by the time we got to be sophomores and we all played football, Shane and I both played offensive line. He was a left guard, and I was a right tackle, and Rodney was a fullback. So we all, once we all got together and started playing, we were all on offense. We were all inseparable. It was just a natural thing with all 3 of us. We all had the same similar type personalities, although I am admittedly a little bit more laid back. Rodney and Shane, Shane's a little bit more crazier, I'll say, than all of us. But he was definitely, it was a great mix of personalities in our little group there.
Okay. Now, was this? I know that whenever we were in high school or whatever, you would hang out with people outside of school. Were you spending a lot of time over at at Rodney's house? Were you at Shane's house? Were they with you? Was that something that happened, or was it just mainly in school that you guys hung out?
Yeah, my house, like I said, my house wasn't that big. They were crazy not going to my house because my mom could cook. But we, obviously, by the size of me, as far as we'd go to Rodney's once in a while, not too much. Mostly everybody, was always invited to Shane's house. Shane's house seemed to be the place to, we would have casino nights at his house, and we would be playing cards for money or shooting pool for money, or as kids in high school, or swimming in the pool in the summertime and stuff like that. And that would seem to be the place, only because it was so big, the house, and it was able to keep us all around. That was always a good thing. So
okay,
but yeah, that's pretty good way.
Okay, now after high school, you said you went to college. You went to the University of Connecticut. Did you kind of lose touch with everybody at that point, or were you all still close?
Freshman year, I'd say no. You're still kind of you stay in touch. As sophomore, junior, senior year, as that went on, you start to not see each other as much. But it was, you'd see each other more on breaks, but it wasn't like you were picking up the phone and calling. I wasn't calling Shane, or Shane wasn't calling me on a Tuesday afternoon to say, hey, what's going on, It was more of a, the funny thing about us, it's not funny, but the good thing about our relationship, the whole group of us, is we could not talk for a month, 2 months, and if we did, as soon as we see each other, it's like we picked up where we left off. And that's a sign of a great friendship. There's times where, even to this day, if Shane's over in Japan or Asia, whatever country he's in, and I don't speak to him for a while, his schedule's busy, or mine is, but by the time we end up talking, it's like nothing ever missed a beat,
That's awesome.
which is great.
That's awesome. Now, You were in college, you're playing football. At that point, you're probably starting to think about what you're going to do with your life outside of college. What were your prospects after you graduated? And actually, what were you in college to do?
I studied sociology, and don't ask me why. I had no idea, to be honest with you, what I was going to do. I actually figured if I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, I was going to go into coaching because I always look at things a little differently. I always try to take a different aspect. Like being an offensive lineman, you have to know what the guy next to you is doing and the guy next to him, and whatever. And I always enjoyed knowing how the work of a team goes, and I always wanted to get into coaching. So for me, that was a big thing. So I got my academic advisor said, "Oh, you should go into sociology with your personality and everything. You'd be perfect." Well, sociology doesn't really pay the bills. So the only thing that was good was the personality allows me to be in sales now, so that helps, and it actually helped with my wrestling career as well.
Okay.
So, but I did that, and so after that, when I got out of school, to answer that question, I had no idea what I was going to do. I ended up bouncing from a couple jobs, trying to feel myself out, to feel like what I liked, and couldn't find anything. And then eventually, you find a job here and there, and that's what it was. It was a job, and it was work, and I didn't like going to those jobs. But eventually, obviously, I found a few jobs that I love to do, and I'm good to go now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, after college, you said you bounced around a little bit, and so how was it that you got mixed back in with Shane, and how did this whole Mean Street Posse come about?
Well, it's all right. So this is a good story. So Rodney and I had a falling out over a girl, and it was something that got resolved because of Shane. So Rodney and I weren't talking, and I was at a bar with a couple guys, and Rodney and Shane came in as well with maybe a couple other guys. And I went over, I started talking to Shane or whatever. I mean, I said hello to Rodney, but we weren't really that, we weren't being as close as we are now, or even before that. And it was Shane that basically said, listen, the three of us are going out, and everything's gonna get resolved. So I left the group that I was with. Those guys, the three of us went to a strip club, and so we go to a strip club, and Rodney, Shane, and I sat at the bar, and Shane said, "You guys sit here, and you guys figure this out. I'm going to be over there getting a lap dance." And we sat there, and we figured the whole thing out, and then we started, we talked out our differences, and I remember that night it was freezing cold, and it was snowing, and Shane had a convertible Corvette, and we took the three of us could never fit in a convertible Corvette. It was too small. So we actually took the T-tops off, or the top off it, rather, and Rodney sat on the center console and put one leg between me and one leg between Shane, and we drove about 15 miles back to Shane's house and finished up the night there, had a few more beers there, and but it was funny because Rodney, it was so cold. I don't know how he did that. And he just put a pair of sunglasses on. We drove home, and everything else was good after that. So if it wasn't for Shane, who knows what would have happened if we still been talking, or what would have happened.
Well, obviously you guys all kind of grew up, and you got to the point where, you all had kind of different paths, but you got led back together somehow. So did Shane, ask you guys to be a part of this, or were you pushing for it, or how did the actual initial conversation come up about you guys joining him in the WWF at the time?
Well, we talked about how, I didn't know what I was going to do out of college. I had actually gone to Shane and mentioned to him that I wanted to get into the business. This is, say, 23 years old at the time. And he actually talked me out of it. He said, you don't want to do this. You're going to go to Memphis, Tennessee. You're going to work for $25 a day. You're not going to be able to hold down a regular job because you're going to have to leave early to go to whatever city, set up the ring. From there, you're going to have to go, do the match, and then take the ring down. By the time you get home, you're going to be too tired to even eat, and you're not going to have another job. So you're going to be living on. You're going to basically deplete your savings account. And basically, he did everything he could to talk me out of the business. Plus, he didn't want to have to show favoritism to me back then.
Exactly.
With regards to the Mean Street Posse, Shane had an upcoming match at WrestleMania in 1999 with X-Pac, and at this point now, after the makeup between Rodney and I and everything, we started working out at the headquarters, at WWE headquarters. They call it Titan Tower, and Shane had gotten us passes so we could go in anytime, any day, anytime we wanted to go work out. So, and Shane would come by. His office was right around the corner from the gym, and he said to us, he goes, "Hey, Friday, come on by my office after you work out. I want to talk to you guys." So we went in after, and he says, "Hey," he goes, "I need you guys to do me a favor." And, of course, we're like, "Sure, whatever you need." And he said, "I need you guys to dress really preppy on Sunday, and at 10 a.m., I want you to go down to the studio, and Chris Chambers is going to ask you a bunch of questions and stuff." He said, "Here's the script." And he tore it up right in front of us, threw it in the garbage. He said, basically, "I want you guys to tell stories about when we were kids, being a-holes, like getting in fights, doing stuff that, we used to do. And Chris Chambers is going to take that, and he's going to edit it, and he's going to put it on, and Monday night you're going to be on Monday Night Raw." So we were like, "Sure, let's do it." So we went. I remember Rodney came to my house. It was 8 a.m. We both drank a 12-pack of beer, and we went over to the studio, and we filmed these things, and we ended up, being on Monday Night Raw, and then the one thing about Shane is he keeps everything kayfabe. Shane's whole life, basically, not his whole life, but certain things about his life are very kayfabe. No one knows things about him. And that goes with wrestling as well. That's why last Monday night, nobody knew what was going on. People had ideas, but they weren't really sure. And he kayfabed everybody, and that's why kayfabe needs to come back to wrestling, because it makes everything a lot better. But that's a whole, social media is destroying it. But so we ended up, as time went on, as the weeks went on, they kept playing vignettes, and then they brought us to the Monday before WrestleMania. They brought us up to Albany, New York, and Shane challenged X-Pac to a street fight. And we pulled up in Corvette convertibles. We got on the X-Pac, we beat him up, and then we jumped back in the vets and took off. And even at that point, we had no idea what was going on. Next thing you know, the following day, Shane calls and says, "Hey, we're inviting you guys to come to WrestleMania." And then they put us in the front row. So then we got involved with that match. We helped Shane win that match. And then about 10 days after that, I guess, those signs, the same signs, how people are over, that's where they told us, because there were signs of us in the crowd. And that was huge for us, because then they said, "Hey, we want to bring you on the road." Back then, Monday Night Raw was filmed live on Monday, and Tuesday was filmed for the following Monday. There was no SmackDown at that time. And they asked Rodney and I to take some vacation time to come on the road with them, rather. We did that for probably about a month and a half, and then we lost the Loser Leaves Town match with Briscoe and Patterson. And that was, to my knowledge, I thought we were done with with our careers. So we were kind of bummed out, and then all of a sudden they called us back, and Shane called us in his office again and said, "Here, we want to sign you guys to three 1-year contracts." And I just remember that being the greatest feeling in the world, and the rest is what it is. But the funny thing about the whole, when he called us back in 10 days after WrestleMania, he had envelopes for us then as well, and we had no idea what it were. And he said, "Here, these are for you guys." And we opened them up, and we had checks And we're like, what's this for? He's like, what do you mean? He goes, you guys worked. And Rodney and I kind of looked and laughed, and we're like, man, we got paid for this? Because we would have done it for free. We weren't doing it for the money. We were doing it to help our buddy out, and we literally did not know that we were getting paid for that.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, we would have done it for free. You know, I mean, that was it. You know, but it was an amazing. It was unbelievable. Greatest feeling in the world was to get that contract. To know that they thought enough of us to give us an opportunity, which was huge. I mean, that was very big.
Well, I have to have you shed some light on what I think is one of the greatest wrestling mysteries of all time. I actually opened up my refrigerator this morning, pulled out a milk carton, and it said missing Willie Green.
Yeah, okay.
So, what happened? Because obviously you spoke about the vignettes. There was another member of the posse that didn't make it.
Yeah, Willie Green. Actually, he was there at WrestleMania.
Yes.
He was one of, there was 5 of us in the crowd, in the front row there. Willie Green it was Rodney, myself, Willie Green, Bill Piro. I think they called him Billy P for on the show. And then the last one was Chris, his name's Chris Sahowitz. He was Shane's college roommate, but a very close friend of ours. You know, we all became close. And, but for the most part, you know, Willie, I don't know what it was. I don't know I have theories about it, but I don't want to share my theories on why the other guys were not chosen. It's, you know, it's that, to be honestly, is none of my business, but I have ideas why. But with regards to, you know, I was just, you know, obviously I could only worry about myself on that, but
yeah,
they were not asked, the 10 days after, they were not asked to be a part of it. And I know there was a little, I know Willie was a little bit upset. You know, I think Willie thought he was going to be the next heavyweight champ. But other than that, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the reasoning behind it is.
Well, I feel like, and just from a fan watching, it felt like when it was Rodney, Pete Gas, and Joey Abs, there was undeniable chemistry, you know, with you guys. So just as an outsider, like, you know, from the time that WrestleMania hit to the time that you guys were actually like a trio, that's what I felt. I felt that maybe you guys just had the better chemistry out of all of them. So, but yeah, it was always something I wondered, because I remember looking back at those vignettes and then seeing that it decreased some. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, at this time, you know, you're in the WWE. It's something that you've always thought about, and you're there. You were actually there during the Attitude Era, which everybody romanticizes and says is the greatest era of all time, but it's undeniable that you were there with The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker, you know, when the hottest angles were going on. Did you ever just like have to pinch yourself to realize that you were doing this during that time?
Without question. I mean, it was an honor to be a part of that era. I mean, when you think about the names, like you just said, and then there's so many more that you didn't even, we don't have time for even to mention all the other names, but there's so many guys there. It was a really special time to be a part of that. And it was one of those things. I never took one day for granted. I always got up and got excited about, what I was going to do that day. And, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just the atmosphere in the locker room was one that I've talked to Prince Albert, Matt Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
I speak to him still from time to time, and I remember a few years back we talked, and he was saying how the locker room's a lot different than it was back in the Attitude Era. So I can't really compare, but he did. I just know that during the Attitude Era, it was, we were fighting against WCW ratings and all that stuff. And everyone, there was a great mix of, there weren't a lot of ego guys. Everyone had, an axe to grind against WCW. Everyone wanted to beat them. And there was a real team atmosphere there. There's always exceptions to the rules, and there's always people that, there wasn't a lot of dissension. And with the exception of us when we first got there, there were certain people that didn't accept us because of the way we got in the business, and that's a whole other story. But with regards to once we started to earn respect with the boys, you just felt like a whole different thing. There were certain guys like Edge, Christian. Those guys would pull me aside even from day one and say, "Hey, listen, you may want to try this, or do this, or why do you think you did this?" And they helped. They were trying, and to this day, that's why they're great friends, because they were there to help, and they knew they weren't threatened by me. I was there to put people over, and that was my job, and I accepted that. I loved it, and I would do it in a heartbeat without even thinking about it.
Awesome. Now, you obviously spent a lot of time in the ring. A lot of the fans at that time, it was, they were booing you because they were supposed to. But did you ever have any problems outside the ring, traveling from town to town, of people saying that wanted to try to take you on, or thought that maybe you weren't as tough as you acted on TV? Was there any problems with that?
No, I mean, I'm kind of used to it. I mean, when even in college, there was always someone in a bar that was trying to prove that, how tough they were. I tried not to put myself in situations. That's why I always felt like I was a decent guy for the company, because I was never out looking for trouble. I never put myself in a situation where I would end up giving the company or the McMahons. I remember one time having a discussion with Vince, and he said, this is when we had first started. We talked. I guess we had to talk, me, him, and Rodney, about if you screw up, if you do something, say you get in a bar fight, the headlines aren't going to say Pete Gasparino gets in a fight. It's going to say Pete Gas of the WWF gets in a fight. You know what I'm saying? So that always stuck home with me. And not that I was always I was never one looking for a fight. Not to say I haven't been in any, but I was never the one that looking or initiating it. That's one thing I always say. I always remembered Vince saying that, and it always stuck. But I mean, they're fans. I got punched in the head one night, and we were in Anaheim. Shane was facing Stone Cold in a steel cage, and Rodney. It was a house show. Rodney and I went to help. Long story short, we're helping Shane back, because Shane obviously lost the match to Stone Cold, and some fan reached over and punched me right in the side of the head.
Oh God!
And I kind of, I broke character for a second, and I didn't go at him. I thought about it, and it was a natural instinct, and the security ended up getting him and bringing him in the back, but they got to him. But yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that was happening back then. People love to hate us, so we did have good heat, which is great. I remember one time in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I was, in fact, I don't know if you remember the time that Stone Cold took a monster truck and drove over the Rock's rental car.
Yes.
Okay, so that same exact night, our rental car was parked in the parking lot, and the trunk was about 5 feet from a very small fence that was just keeping people out of that area. And I had went and took the bags, and I was putting the bags back for the rest of the Mean Street Posse. And I had a crowd at my trunk about 5 feet away or whatever, yelling at me, calling me every name in the book. And one of the guys was like the size of a door. He was huge. And he said, he was calling us every name in the book, and I'll keep it clean what he was, he was saying stuff. And so I said, you know what? In my head, I'm saying to myself, I'm going to see what this guy's really thinking. So I shut the trunk, and I walk over to him, and I was like, hey, did you enjoy the show? And the guy's looking at me weird. And he says, yeah, I liked it. And I said, what do you think of the Mean Street Posse? And he says, I think you guys suck. I'd like to kick your ass. So I said to him, I go, well, that's good. I go, that means I'm doing my job. And see, now, if I make you hate me, that's a good thing, because then I get to keep my job, because you hate me enough that I'm doing a good job of being a heel. So the guy kind of, when you make a noise to like a dog, a puppy, and they kind of give you a head tilt. They don't know what they're trying to figure everything out. That's the kind of that's the look he gave me. So to make a really long story short, by the time I was done, like talking to this crowd, that same guy that was calling me every name in the book was like fist pumping, yelling, "Pete Gas, Pete Gas!" Like all of a sudden, I like transformed this guy.
That's awesome.
That was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty funny. It always stuck in my mind, that whole story.
Now, we talked a little bit about some of your accomplishments. Just getting to the WWE is a huge accomplishment in itself. But what do you think your personal, greatest accomplishment was throughout your wrestling career?
Honestly, it's funny. The way you asked that question made me and I've heard this question a million times. Doing interviews, I heard it a million times. But the way you phrased that question just gave me a new answer and a new feeling on the whole thing. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, no.
My normal answer is actually winning the hardcore belt at WrestleMania. That would be my normal answer, which it is. It was like a thrill of mine because as I won it, I automatically thought that I thought about the situation in the moment. It's in the history books, the whole thing. And although I lost it about a minute or two later from Taz, that really was probably one of the highlights of my career there. But now that you said it like that, I think the biggest accomplishment was earning the respect of everyone in that locker room, and actually also having people still to this day talking about us. I think those are two big things. But the biggest one is definitely getting the respect of the boys in the locker room, to me, is huge.
Absolutely.
Because, for those of whoever's listening to this who doesn't understand, wrestling is all about respect. You have to show respect in order to get respect. And if you don't, God help you, you're going to get your ass whipped. And, there's certain unwritten rules in this business, and I don't know how much things have changed. I don't believe they've changed much, but for Rodney and I, we didn't pay our dues the normal way. We didn't do the indie circuit like I tried to do it, and Shane talked me out of. We didn't do that route. We did. We were given a gift. Vince, and this will lead me to something that's very important to me. Things that certain fans, there's certain fans out there that say they're true wrestling fans. They know all about it and they get it and all this stuff, and they have a lot to say about the Mean Street Posse, but not in a good way. They call it. They say we suck. They said this. Those same exact people, don't understand one thing. Vince McMahon took two guys with athletic backgrounds and put us in the ring with the best of the business and said, wrestle for 10 minutes when we don't know how to do anything but maybe take a back bump and survive. Don't hurt my guys. Don't you get hurt at the same time, and put on a show. So when you think of it that way, if you look, like right now, I'm parked on the side of a road doing this interview. I'm looking at some guy jogging by. You take that guy, you throw that guy in the ring. It's a hell of a lot tougher than it looks. And to be honest with you, no one understands. Like, some people get it, but some people don't understand it, and they never will if they don't, because you see the shows toughen up, the original seasons of it, and how hard it was, and how they ached, and you guys have nobody knows except for Rodney and I what that was like, and how much there were mornings that we had a Raw. And we had another. We had just done a Raw the night before, and I had hurt my leg, and I was so afraid that if I got hurt or if I couldn't work, I was going to get cut. That I was up at. Now I went to bed at 2. By the time we traveled to whatever city it was, and I remember getting up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, not to wake Rodney up, because back then they used to make us room together, and I would walk the streets to try to loosen my leg up so it wouldn't stiffen up, so I could perform the following night, and I did. So I mean, like, that was we me really, like, it's those little things that people just don't see, which just makes me, it's kind of, I know it, Rodney knows it, the office knows it, and I think that's all that matters, but the McMahons know it, which is the biggest concern, because we just want to make them proud of us. But that's kind of the thing that I go on these rants, so I don't even remember where we started with this conversation. I just know that I start going, and I don't know when to stop. But I got a lot to say, obviously.
No, I think it's great. And you were in a locker room that was, we mentioned the names. It was a who's who of people. And, Undertaker, Stone Cold, JBL was a known, people have said that he's been a bully to people backstage or whatever. And you guys gained the respect, not having any proper training, anything like that. So that really is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm sure later we'll talk about the project that I have coming up. But I got Bradshaw's involved with this project. I'm writing a book of a biography, and Bradshaw actually does the forward. And in the book, I talk about how I didn't have Bradshaw's respect in the beginning because I didn't pay my dues, and it wasn't until a specific Monday night he hit me in the head with a chair and wrapped it around my head, literally. We came backstage after the match. Usually guys, shake hands and say thank you for taking care of us. Like I said, it's all about respect in this business. And Bradshaw told me about 6 months later that was the night I earned his respect. Because when we went backstage, he was expecting me to either punch him, like throw a punch, bitch, moan, whatever the case was. Like he was on it. He didn't know how I was gonna be reacting to that whole chair shot, and he knew he laid it in. And when he came back, I was actually laughing, and I shook his hand, and I said thank you. And that's my way of saying can't hurt me. I'm good, and I'm okay with it. I'll take your best shot, and I did. And he said that was the day that I earned his respect, and it made me, it was great hearing him say it, and then for him to actually now write the forward to my book coming out next year. Obviously, I did something to earn his respect for him to go out of his way to write a forward to my book.
Now, you just mentioned that. What else can you tell us about this project? It's you said that it's going to be coming out next year. And we know now that JBL is writing the forward, but is this just something that you wanted to do to kind of get these stories out there, or were you approached to write this book? How did this come about?
No, it was always a dream of mine. Like eventually, so what happened was Rodney and I were training for when we weren't on television. Once we were signed to contracts, when we weren't on television, we were training at the TV studio. They had a ring set up for us to train with Dr. Tom Pritchard. Eventually what happened was we had to go to Memphis, Tennessee to learn more philosophy. And we would do that on the days that we were not on television. And back then, Steven Regal was our trainer. And we had the worst facility. Like we were actually wrestling in some this guy, Buddy Wayne, a legendary wrestler in the Mid-South. We were in his backyard training on his ring that had dead mice on it, and he had gym equipment set up in the backyard. He had a squat rack, a bench press. It was all rusted out from the rain. And it was kind of a culture shock. And so I remember taking pictures of those things, and I remember saying to myself, man, someday I want to write a book and put these in a book. And then for years, I mean, I'm probably about 14 years too late for writing this book, but maybe it worked out better this way. So I remember saying I wanted to write this book, and then my co-author, John Robinson, who wrote the book that came out last year, the Attitude Era book, and
yes.
He also wrote what's his name, Warrior book that just came out. He wrote both of those books. So when it came time for the Attitude Era book, I got a call from WWE saying that they wanted me to be a part of it and that John Robinson was going to be calling me. So I went and I went on a conference call with him, and we spoke at great length, and I was telling stories, and John could not stop laughing at some of my stories about being on the road. And he said, he goes, you should write a book sometime. And I said, what's funny is I've always wanted to, and he told me, he said, I'll write it for you. He says, we'll write it together. So that was how that began, and then we started writing about a year ago in January. He had other projects, he had the Warrior book and all that other things, so in his spare time, we would work, a few weeks here and there. And then we pitched it in this past December to a bunch of publishing companies. And a publishing company out of New York City picked it up, and they're excited as hell about it. And we signed a deal about 3 weeks ago with the publishing company, and it's going to launch in March of 2017. So
that's great.
We'll see.
Yeah. Now, we have to ask you the questions that you're going to get asked right now.
Here they come. I knew they were coming.
We have to. The entire wrestling universe was rocked the other day with the surprise return of Shane McMahon. Now, you are a friend and a fan. So, what was that? Just seeing that happen, and I know you said that Shane keeps everything very close to the chest. So I don't know what you knew, and I don't need to know, but watching that return, what did it feel like for you?
So first of all, I did not know. I had actually I spoke to Shano at about 1:30 that day, and just giving him a call to say, hey, what's up? And he was delivering a guitar to his son's school that his son forgot the guitar. And then to see him a few hours later in Detroit, my jaw hit the ground. So I'm going to try to say this without I get very choked up about this because I know how much it means to him, and excuse me, and I know how much it means to his family, his boys. So I got to, I talked to Shane at great length the following day, and I know it's pretty special for him and his family, so that to me is it's pretty important. I know. Shane was he was born and bred for this business, and for him to come back, he had to swallow a lot of pride. And I know he's doing this for his boys because we had this conversation. His boys, they were too little when he was, like Rogan wasn't even born when he was wrestling. But anyway, I know that his family, like his sons always wanted to see him wrestle live, and he's not going to go work for Ring of Honor. So I think part of it was I think most of it was for them to share a memory, and then they get to see their dad wrestle. I know that Marissa recorded their reaction. She didn't say where Dad was that night, and she had a couple of GoPros set up and her cell phone to get their reaction. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well,
so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I am. I don't know why that you guys and Shane always resonated with me. I'm a 32-year-old person right now, so I was really in that key demographic whenever the Attitude Era was coming, full swing. But I always enjoyed the Mean Street Posse, and I always enjoyed Shane McMahon. I got the Shane McMahon jersey, the action figure. I was always disappointed that the Mean Street Posse never got an action figure or T-shirt because I would have bought every one of them. But
we weren't allowed. We were not allowed to have anything like that.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, well, I guess it makes sense because you guys were kind of like outsiders at some point, but it's still maybe someday it'll still happen. But
yeah. Well, you want the story behind that, or you want?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right. So back then, not everybody had an action figure. Not everybody had a T-shirt, and the designers of the shirts actually were friends of mine. One of them grew up down the street on my same street, and they would send me emails and stuff with ideas for different ideas for T-shirts, and they always got shot down because Vince was afraid to have us, afraid to show us any favoritism. So that's why we never got, we were in video games, we were hidden characters, but we were never allowed to have T-shirts or anything like that, or action figures, or any of that good stuff. So it was unfortunate, but that would have been a great memento to have and stuff. But it just turned out that way. It was part of the part of the whole thing about not showing any favoritism and making sure that he kept us safe too.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. Where were you going to go with that?
No, I was just going to say that I feel like nowadays, after the news broke that Shane is returning to take on the Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell, it's almost been my self-imposed, mind you, duty to go online and tell people that Shane McMahon is going to make this as good as he can, and he's a legit competitor. Why don't you think people see that? I mean, why are they dismissing him so quickly that he's not going to put on one hell of a show?
I'll tell you what, that kid's in better shape now. I call him a kid because to me he's a kid, even though he's older than me. He's in better shape now, and to those people who doubt him, I have one question for them, and the question would be, can you name one match that Shane's match sucked? And the answer is no. And you look at how many pay-per-views that Shane McMahon has been a part of. How many of those pay-per-views did you, after watching, say, God damn, Shane's match was the best match of the night. It had everything. It had excitement. It had, high spots. It had entertainment in every way, shape, and form. When have you ever seen a Shane McMahon match that was not every one of those damn things? And now all of a sudden you're going to doubt this kid that has had about 6 to 7 years, whatever it is, of pent-up energy, just waiting to do it. And on top of it, he's got 3 boys that are going to be sitting ringside to watch his dad. And he's facing Taker, who always puts on a good show. I got news for the people who doubt it. You're all going to be eating a lot of crow come the day after WrestleMania, because you're all going to say that was the best damn match of the night by far.
Well,
that you could back.
Yeah. I'm glad that, like I said, I knew I wouldn't be in the minority, but I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that it's for me. It's going to be awesome just to see. And I was one of the people that was running around the old apartment whenever that happened. But I have to ask this, and you're not going to be able to answer it. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask. I need to know if the Mean Street Posse is going to return to help Shane. And just, like I said, you can't say anything, but I have to ask.
Well, the answer to that is we are not. There is no plans of that.
Okay.
And that would be my answer if I knew and if I didn't know. But I can tell you honestly, there are no plans that I'm aware of at all. So I don't. I did speak to Shane about going.
Yes.
I would like to go just to. I like going to watch. Obviously, I've been to a few after I've been out of the business. I'd love to be able to go there. Hopefully, go out to dinner with him one night. Hopefully, if possible, with our wives and his children. And obviously, I'd love to see some of the guys that I haven't seen in a long time. So I'm still trying to find out if I have a ticket, and I know that he said that he was going to get me one. So I'm looking forward to being there, but there are no plans on the Mean Street Posse coming back as far as I'm aware of. So.
Now, we know you're busy. I got just 2 more questions for you. I once again thank you so much. Some other big news is that, through social media, we got a picture sent out the other day with you and Edge and Christian. So,
Yeah.
are we gonna get to see you on any upcoming episodes of the Edge and Christian show that totally reeks of awesomeness?
That's why I was there. Yes, it is. There's a couple of them that well, I know there's one that I'm embarrassed when it airs. But yes, there is some stuff that we did, and I'm very excited about that. We'll see. Hopefully I did a good enough job that they'll have me back again. But those guys are good friends. The other thing, here going back to that whole respect thing that I love, and to fill you in on something else, with regards to my book again, Edge is doing the afterword on my book. So, that as far as respect goes, it means a lot to me that they would ask me to be a part of the show after the fact, and the fact that he would write this part of the book for me, which is amazing. They're great guys. It was so nice to see them a few days ago. We got to spend a lot of time together. I think I shot early in the day, and then I had another scene later in the day, so I could have left, but instead I hung around and enjoyed the company of those guys and reminiscing. And then afterwards, myself, Tommy Dreamer, and Edge went out to dinner, and we had a blast. It was so much fun, and the one thing about when you leave that business, the hardest thing to do is leave the boys being a part of it, especially when you have those relationships, because you're used to seeing them every day, and it's almost like a party of dies that you don't. But to have another taste of that, which is kind of like I said, like I was asking Shane for a ticket because I'd love to be able to bump into at the hotel, go see a couple buddies, see him in the lobby or whatever, or go out to have lunch or dinner or whatever. I wish that the office would bring different guys to Access that week before. They seem to always bring the guys that they have the Legends contracts with. Just gives you an opportunity to almost like have a reunion. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty special. It is. And yes, to answer your question, I am on the show. Hopefully you'll be seeing more of me, and hopefully everyone will forgive me about a certain scene that will be coming up. So.
Well, we'll do our best. Once again, we can't thank you enough for coming on. We are very excited about this book and all the great things that you've got going on. Today, obviously, the world is full of social media, so where can people keep up with you and find out as you go through this book process?
My Twitter account is I am Pete Gas, and that's really it. I mean, I just started to get into the Twitter thing. It was kind of funny that Shane goes on Raw, and I pick up 500 followers within a couple hours, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I do have comments to say once in a while, and it's going to be, hopefully it'll be picking up. People are asking. I'm getting this social media thing. To me is just a whole different breed, and I'm kind of glad it wasn't around when I was wrestling, because you read comments about certain things, and there's always that guy that's a tough guy in his mom's basement, waiting for mom to bring back down a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with the crust cut off, and he's a tough guy in his computer saying a lot of things, and I kind of I learned to laugh at that. But back then when I was wrestling and a lot more insecure about what I was doing and trying to learn the business, it probably would have messed with my head a little bit more. But now the fact that it's years later and I know where it's coming from, I'm actually kind of I kind of enjoy sometimes some of the stuff that's being said. Everyone wants to know if I'm coming back, just like you asked, and everyone wants all these things, and I'll write something like, people ask me if I was going to help Shane. I sent 10 pizzas to Taker's house the other day. Does that count? Try to get it, so he wouldn't be working out. I'll try to say something witty or try to say something funny, and some guys know how to take it, some guys don't. As far as like fans, everyone has something to say. They just try to get under your skin to see if they can get a reaction from it. But anyway, but that's it. I guess Twitter's the only way, really. I know that you and I connected on Facebook, Other than that, that's it. I mean, that's all I got.